Okay. So, and I hope I don't get cut off here. I'll wait till we get some people online, and then I shall start. Shaz Taylor Morgan, that's our first one. Come on, we need some more people. Steve Ward, now we're going to whistle Dixie. Basically, we're in the middle of this pandemic, right? And we're all being locked down. We can't move out of the house, and that's because this pandemic is taking people's lives. Okay, I understand that, I get that. I'm not saying that the pandemic doesn't exist. I'm not saying the virus doesn't exist. Obviously it does. But I've got some questions, right? I've got some questions, and I want to put those questions to you. I'm asking you to think about these questions that I'm going to put forward, all right? And I'm only asking questions at this moment in time. That's all it is. I want you to share this, because I think we should be all asking these questions as rational individuals, right? As rational, intelligent thinking people. I think we should all be asking these questions. So, and I'm reading from a book, so you'll have to bear with me, right? Or I'm reading from my pad. So the government's chief medical advisor, Neil Ferguson, before this all broke out, he estimated that 500,000 people, 500,000 people, would die of the coronavirus in this country, right? That was the government's own chief medical advisor. He advised the government that, worst case scenario, 500,000 people were going to die in this country of coronavirus. The day after the government's dystopian, to quote the government backbencher, coronavirus bill went through, right? The government's chief medical advisor then said he revised his figure, and now the figure of dead people in this country because of coronavirus would be 20,000, under 20,000, which is basically about the amount of people that would die every year, or died last year even, from flu. The chief medical advisor said that he'd revised his figures because of the lockdown measures that were in place. So here we have Neil Ferguson, the government's chief medical advisor, just prior to this lockdown and everything else. So he was advising the government that 500,000 people were going to die of coronavirus. The day after, 1 or 2 days after, the coronavirus bill went through, which is so freedom restricting, right? He then revised his figures, did Neil Ferguson, and said that there wasn't going to be 500,000 people dying. There was only going to be under 20,000 people dying. He also said that because of that, the ICU units in this country would probably be okay. There was no need to worry, okay? So, why, when the numbers of people, 480,000 people less are now forecast to die because of these lockdown procedures that we've got in place, why now are our government set to introduce even stricter lockdown measures? I mean, if the lockdown measures that we've got in place, by Neil Ferguson's own words, are responsible for the death toll from coronavirus going down from 500,000 to under 20,000, why do we need even stricter measures? Why do the measures have to get stricter? Doesn't that seem odd to you? If the measures that we've got in place have seen the government's chief medical advisor revise his figures, and the figures go down from 500,000 to under 20,000, why do they have to get stricter? Why do those measures have to get stricter when obviously the measures that we got in place are working remarkably well as it is? That's my first question. The The second question is this. Last year, the Johns Hopkins University, the Bill Gates and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the World Economic Forum, okay, they held a simulation of a coronavirus outbreak. Did you realise that? And this isn't conspiracy theory. This is all like in mainstream media. I've done nothing for 10 days other than sit in the house and read, right? So last year, the Johns Hopkins University, the Bill Gates Foundation, and the World Economic Forum held a simulation of a coronavirus pandemic, and they estimated that 65 million people worldwide would die. Now, can you believe that this simulation of this coronavirus outbreak took place? Are you ready for this? This simulation of this coronavirus outbreak took place just 6 weeks, just 6 fucking weeks before the actual outbreak took place itself. Right? Now, don't you think that if people like Bill and Melinda Gates and the World Economic Forum, right, and the Johns Hopkins University are holding a simulation of a coronavirus outbreak, right, to see how it would affect people, don't you think our government would have known about that? And so, bearing that in mind, why didn't our government have measures in place like back end of last year? Why didn't the governments of the world, knowing for a fact that this simulation took place 6 weeks before the outbreak actually started, wouldn't you say that the governments would have had something in place? And don't you think it's odd that they should have this simulation 6 weeks before the actual outbreak took place? Right? So that's my second question. Why didn't the government have measures in place then, based on the information that the Johns Hopkins University and the Bill Gates Foundation and the World Economic Forum had all got from this simulation? That's my second question. My third question was, all of this has been done under this whole simulation thing was done under the watchful eye of the World Health Organization. Now, the World Health Organization is set up, or was set up, right, to protect us. Not keep us in the fucking dark. So when they had this simulation, when this World Economic Forum and the Johns Hopkins University and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, when they had this simulation of a coronavirus outbreak, right, why the fuck didn't the World Health Organization, why didn't they tell us to prepare? Why didn't they release the information that they'd got from that simulation? Why didn't they release all the information that they gathered? Why didn't they tell us then how this virus spreads? Because if the World Health Organization had given us, and our government had given us that information at the back end of last year of how this virus actually spreads, we could have started doing something about it then. There might not have been thousands of people dying all over the fucking world. Why didn't they let us know? This simulation took place at the back end of last year. Why didn't they let us know the information then? But I've got that's my third question, right? And these are all questions. I'm not making statements. I'm asking questions, and I'm asking questions, right? Because I'm a normal bloke who sits here. I sit and think all the time, don't you? Haven't you got a brain? Do you think, or don't you think, or do you just accept? Because my dad always told me, son, always question the man. Always ask questions. And I've tried to instill that in my daughter. So I'm asking questions, and that's all I'm doing. Because if these questions sort of like come up in my mind, then don't questions come up in anybody else's mind. Am I the only one that thinks? Or am I the only one that is like seems to be like unafraid to say that I think and ask questions? And that's all I'm doing, asking questions. My fourth question is this. Did you know, and once again this is fact, but did you know that in October last year, between the dates of the 18th of October and the 27th of October, Did you know that the World Military Games, and the World Military Games is a multi-sport event for nations of the world, right? It's kind of like a military Olympics, okay? The World Military Games last year took place in Wuhan. I'll say that to you again. The World Military Games took place in Wuhan between the dates of the 18th and the 27th of October in Wuhan last year. Now, the first reported case in Wuhan was on the 17th of fucking November, right? The reason I'm saying that is I personally know two people who had the symptoms of coronavirus in February. One of them came to my show on the 27th of February at the Soho Theatre in London. He was as bad as a dog, and he identified all the symptoms of coronavirus at that time, and he said he'd felt fucking terrible. I have a friend down on the south coast. I only spoke to him 2 nights ago, and he knows another 2 people who had symptoms of coronavirus in December, right? So my question is this. Bearing in mind that the World Military Games took place at the end of October, and the first reported case of coronavirus in China was on the 17th of November, and it has a gestation period of something like 2 weeks, doesn't it? Right? Is it beyond the realms of possibility that the virus wasn't spread to people in this country and around the world by a ship returning to this country from China, but actually from military personnel who'd been taking part in the military games over in Wuhan in late October last year? Could this be why this virus has spread all over the world so easily? Because we had servicemen and women taking part in those military games in Wuhan, the fucking epicentre of the pandemic, right? And is that why people were having symptoms in this country, or showing symptoms in this country, that I know of personally, and I'm only one man, but is that why people were having symptoms and showing symptoms in December, January and February? I mean, if I know 2 people, right, if I have 2 friends who were displaying signs and symptoms of coronavirus in January and February, and I know another friend who knows people who were showing signs of having coronavirus in December, then how many other people in this country know people who were showing signs of coronavirus early this year or late last? I mean, I'm not being too far off the mark there, am I? You've got the World Military Games, you've got fucking servicemen and women taking part in the military games in Wuhan, the centre, the start of the virus, of the pandemic, all at the same time as the first recorded case, or just a couple of weeks before the first reported case. But the final thing I want to say, right? Did you know that 30 kilometres, I think it's west of Wuhan, the Chinese government, right, have a biological weapons facility, a biological weapons lab. It's part of a plan or a scheme by the Chinese government to build between 5 and 7 such biological labs across China. Okay? And this is in the mainstream media, by the way. This is not on some David Icke site or anything like that. This is in like in the mainstream media online. All this stuff, right? All of this stuff that I've come out with, it's online. The World Military Games, the simulation, this lab, right? It's all there. All the thing about about Neil Ferguson, the chief medical officers or the Chief Medical Advisor's revised figures. It's all there, and it's all being reported in the mainstream media, in the Telegraph, and all kinds of things, you know. So have a look if you don't believe me. Ask the same questions. That's what I want you to do. I want you to come online and I want you to ask questions. And I want you to share the fuck out this video, because if I'm asking these questions as a bloke who's fucking a virtual prisoner in his own home, right, then other people should ask questions too, or want to ask questions. I mean, basically, it's up to you whether you ask questions or not. And all I'm doing is asking questions. I still haven't made my mind up. At the moment, I'm stuck in the fucking house, can't get out, right? Because you got a virus running around killing fucking people. Okay? And I understand the importance of us eradicating that. If I didn't, I wouldn't be in my house. I wouldn't show it any respect. My Auntie Mary died yesterday of cancer. I didn't get the chance to say goodbye because I was showing the respect that she deserved and not wanting to even risk taking the fucking thing round to her. Okay? I got 2 mates up the road, up our High Street here. More or less certain they've got it. They've displayed all the symptoms. I then go around to my children's house, my grandchildren's house. I took them a few pints of milk and some strawberries today. Went straight in and came straight out. So I'm not disrespecting this, but I'm asking questions. So then we got this situation whereby we've got a biological weapons lab, but it's what they call a BSL-4. Go on Google Maps. It's there on Google Maps, right? 30 kilometres west of Wuhan. And this lab is developing, this facility is developing some of the deadliest viruses and pathogens that are known to man. In the article that I read, there were some scientists around the world that were worried about some of these pathogens and viruses escaping, okay? There's 2 questions I want to ask. 2 questions. The second question is the most important question of all, but the first question is it possible, just fucking possible, that this virus, right, wasn't started in a fucking meat market or a wet fish market or wherever it was in Wuhan? Is it just possible that this virus actually leaked out accidentally from that lab that's 30 kilometres away from Wuhan? This lab that's dealing in like the likes of SARS and MERS and all the other fucking things, right? Is it possible, just possible, that a lab that's dedicated to working with these kind of pathogens and viruses is the actual source of it? Or is that me just being fucking like, oh, you know what I mean? Where put me tin foil hat on and all that bullshit. Because I don't know whether I believe that or not. I'm stating facts. And the fact is that this lab's there. And the fact is that this lab is dealing with this shit. So is it possible, just possible, that this virus escaped, got out from that lab? Is it possible? But my second question, and this is the most important question here, right? As human beings on this fucking planet, right? As human beings, all together, and if it's one thing that this pandemic has done, right, it's made people realise that we're all in this fucking world together, right? And none of us are better than anybody else, and none of us are bigger than anybody else, and we all have the same needs. You've only got to go to Tesco's to see there's no fucking toilet paper on the shelves. We all need to shite and wipe our ass, do you know what I mean? We all need the same things. I need the love of my family the same as you do, and we all can't have it, right? But my second question is this one, right? My second question is this one. These biological weapons, right? All our countries are fucking involved in it. They've been doing it at Porton Down, right? They've been fucking around with viruses and pathogens at Porton Down in the south since the 1920s. I think it was the first bio lab in the world, Porton Down. But they do it all over the world, right? And do you want to know what it is? What really fucks me off, right, with this, is that these biological weapons are actually illegal, right? They're fucking illegal. There's not a government in the world who are allowed to have them, right? But every single government in this world are fucking about with biological weapons and pathogens and viruses, right? What the fuck for? When people like me and you, right, are coming down with shit like this, right, with these viruses and stuff, why the fuck, presuming, right, that it leaked out from that lab, why the fuck are these labs even in existence in the first place? I don't want them. I don't fucking want them, do you? Do you want something, right, existing on this fucking world that can destroy millions of people in one go? Do these people like the Johns Hopkins University and Bill Gates, right, and the World Health Organization and the Chinese government and the British government and the American government and the Canadian government, do they think this is a fucking laugh? Do they think that we're just going to sit here and fucking take this shit? Do they think that we want this for our children? Because I don't. I don't want to see my grandchildren cabbing up on a fucking Sunday afternoon in the house going fucking mental because they're bored shitless. I don't want to see my grandchildren not being able to go and run and play because we've got dystopian fucking measures in place that are set to get worse. And that's what's really fucking me off, and that's why I've come to ask these questions. And if you agree with me, right, and I don't... Listen, these are my questions. I'm trying to encourage other people to ask questions. And I've asked about 5 or 6 questions on this video today. And I hope and pray you share these questions out, because these questions need answering. These questions need answering. And I'll go through them again. Question number 1. Why, when the Chief Medical's Advisor has dropped his forecast from 500,000 people to under 20,000 people dying of this virus because of the lockdown measures that we've got in place now, why do we have to get stricter when the ones that we've already got in place are working totally well? Why didn't the World Health Organization, the Johns Hopkins University, the Bill Gates and Melinda Gates Foundation, the World Economic Forum, why didn't they release the information that they'd got from their simulation? Why didn't they prepare us? Why didn't our government have things in place based on that simulation? Why were people getting the symptoms before, like, all this took place in December, January and February? Is it possible that it was brought back by those servicemen and women from all over the world? They've gone back to all the countries. They're all their own respective countries. You know what I mean? Has it come from has it been, is that how it's been spread so effectively? And finally, is the coronavirus outbreak, has it actually come from a biological weapons lab that is there, it's there, west of Wuhan I think it is, right? Has it come from there? And more importantly, why do we even have fucking biolabs in the first place? Eh? And they're my questions. And I'd like answers to them, please, Mr. Johnson. Well, not just Mr. Johnson, but I'd like questions of them all. Bill Gates, I want to ask you the questions. And the World Health Organization, I want to ask you the fucking questions. Johns Hopkins University, I want to ask you the questions. Chinese government, American government, I ask all our fucking governments. Answer these questions. Because I've got to be honest with you, the shit that you're spinning, right, it doesn't add up. And that's not from some fucking conspiracy theory, fucking wanting to believe shit fucking arsehole stuck here in his armchair in Redcar, right? That's just from a normal working class bloke. And if I think like that, there'll be like millions of working class blokes and women all over the world thinking the same kind of stuff. Why are the children going hungry? Why are we stuck in our fucking houses? Do you know what I mean? Just ask the questions. And share these questions as far as you can go. And I'm sorry if my language is a bit... Look, I swear all the time. It's just how I am, right? I'm not going to make apologies for who I am. I'm asking questions. And I think that you should ask the questions too. That's all I can say, really. Ask the questions. Don't just accept. Do you know what I want to know is, right? And this is another one of my questions, right? And this will maybe make you laugh, but it makes me laugh, right? That Neil Ferguson, that chief medical advisor to the government, right? Just prior to all this starting, he said 500,000 people, 500,000 people. He was forecasting 500,000 people were gonna die, right? Through this coronavirus. The day after, as I said, the 2 days after that coronavirus bill went through Parliament, right? He revised that and said, there's only going to be under 20,000 people now, and the NHS are going to be able to cope with it all. Why the fuck is Neil Ferguson still in a job? Eh? Oh, he only got it wrong by 487,000 fucking people. His death toll was only 487,000 people out. Eh? Because of his fucking miscalculation, right? Everybody's been up in arms. There's no food on the fucking shelves. Everybody's panicking like fuck. My grandkids are locked in the fucking house. We can't go out. There's no pubs open. There's fuck all. Everybody's jobs and livelihoods are affected, right? Why the fuck is Neil Ferguson still the government's fucking chief medical advisor? That's the biggest question I want to fucking ask. I've just thought of that one. When I was a young stock taker at Cargo Fleet Steelworks, right, I went in one of the loading bays and I miscalculated 3 or 4 20-foot lengths of 64 joists and they fucking sent me home. They sent me fucking home. Thought I'd had a rabbit away because I'd made a mistake. They sent me home as a working class lad from Cargo Fleet Steelworks because I'd miscalculated 4 lengths of 64 fucking joists that we just rolled. And they sent me home. Yet that fucker, Neil Ferguson, the government's chief medical advisor, he gets his calculations wrong by over 480,000 fucking fatalities and he's still in position. What the fuck is that all about? How the fuck's he still in his well-paid job when he's making fucking mistakes like that? Get rid of the cunt. He's a fucking idiot. Me fucking 3-year-old grandson could have fucking worked it out better than that daft bastard. How the fuck is he still in position? Aren't you sick to fucking death of being fed this fucking stuff? You know, you see, and because you ask questions, suddenly because people are dying, right, you're not allowed to ask questions anymore. Well, you've got to ask questions because of the fact that people are dying. You have to ask questions. These questions have to be asked. But more than that, they have to be answered. They have to be answered. Because they're just rational questions. It's funny because, like, some people say, oh, well, you know, the government are fucking, you know, some people, like, they'll come online and they'll say, oh, well, you're a conspiracy theory for saying that. You're a conspiracy theorist for saying all that, Chris, or for asking those kind of questions. And then you see the same people, they go out and they say, oh, well, the government figures are wrong. The government are deliberately fucking playing it down. Well, isn't that a conspiracy theory too? Fuck off. I'm asking questions. And I'm trying to encourage other people to ask questions too. Ask the questions. Spread this video as far as you can. Ask the fucking questions. Take care. Stay safe. And hopefully, I'll see you all on the other side. Peace.